it looks like there's not going to be a security zone between us and the villages in South Lebanon. No one has eliminated Hezbollah. It was never a goal. It is fair to assume that in a year from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, in 2006, we thought, we're good. We had 17 years of quiet. This area was flourishing. And they took us back 50 years.
Liat Cohen-Raviv, thank you so much for being back on the quad with us. We spoke to you a few months ago when you were evacuated along with your entire community, your entire town, along with 75,000 other people from the north of Israel. And now we have a ceasefire. You, as one of the emerging leaders of what happened in the last year of Metula, has the ceasefire changed your life in any way?
I sure hope that my answer would have been yes. But I'll say two things. One, maybe it's too soon to know, but when we went into this whole thing with Lebanon, we had quite a humble request, I believe. You tell me. The only thing that we have asked for as the communities who are sitting on the fence with Lebanon, we said, please eliminate the danger of, terror organizations or people crossing and penetrating our fence, which is one threat. And then the other was no anti-tank missiles fired directly at our homes.
You seem to be quite basic. No anti-tank missiles fired in your home.
Yeah, and I'm trying, and I will be the first to say that because I became a little bit cynical about this whole thing because it really is a humble request that every citizen in Israel, every person in the world would have asked, right? And now the ceasefire, it looks like the agreement, it leads to the final agreement, and it looks like there's not going to be a security zone between us and the villages in South Lebanon. And without that, I truly am puzzled with our ability.
So let's explain to our viewers. Basically,
Okay.
what the northern residents expected was there would be a buffer zone on the border so the first Lebanese Hezbollah people would be behind a buffer zone. And that buffer zone within Lebanese territory was not part of the deal. And so you're basically a little bit back to square one. But you mentioned anti-tank missiles. Are anti-tank missiles being fired right now to these communities?
Well, currently no, but in Metula only, as a study case, we had over 1,000 of them in the last year, which, brought us to a result that out of 650 houses, 400 are severely damaged. 100 need to be rebuilt altogether. So, as I said, pretty humble request, right? You should know that this weekend, we had like a quiet, it is a ceasefire after all. And we went up to Metula and you could actually see the people from South Lebanon returning to their houses. Now, another thing that the viewers needs to know, that when we say villager residents coming back to South Lebanon, let's take Farkile. Farkile is about 30 meters from Metula. There's literally
30 meters.
Yeah, 30 meters between our last house and their
300
first
feet for Americans. Okay.
Mashu kaza, yeah. And that village has 15,000 residents. 10,000 of them are Shias who are members in Hezbollah. A few thousands are members of Radwan forces. So
the terrorists are back, essentially. That's what you're saying.
I think it's safe to assume, yeah. And if not tomorrow, within a year or two. So what have we done?
Liat, what would you want? What would you have wanted, which is different to the outcome?
Yeah, so, I didn't say that. Our leaders came out to the media and said a few times, and a few of them, that we have eliminated 80% of Hezbollah's power in arms and people and so on. So I would say what my mom said to me all over high school when I came with my degrees. She said, Lama, only 80. What about 100? Why can't you do 100? You're so talented. And I'm asking Israel the same question. Why not 100? We have lost so much in the process. Months and months of people sacrificing their homes, their livelihood, their routine, their like everything, not to talk about loss of lives that we had. So why not 100?
Liat, do you feel the government has been talking to the local leadership, or listening to the local leadership to see how they could make this better? What guarantees are you getting that this is not going to just restart?
So, I've been here for quite some time, and a few of the current leaders, the elected leaders on different municipalities on the borders, are my close friends. And I will just quote them and say, it doesn't look like there is a cooperation. It doesn't look like the government understands the importance of, connecting the people underground, making them, first of all, know what's happening so they can reiterate and direct and answer questions that a lot of the citizens are asking them with a lack of someone else explaining, but also to make them be a part of the solution, which we all, and you have done some leadership roles, that this is a key element if you want something, to
consensus building and listening, just listening.
Else listening, mamash kacha, bringing together, creating ownership, and making us feel we are part of the solution rather than continuing being the problem.
So none of that, you're saying. So Liat, now you have your house there, you've got your community there. Are people waiting, like cautiously waiting? Are they waiting for this 60-day thing? What's going on? Are people like you said you went in the weekend to see what was left of your house, to clear the rubble. What are you and your community and your friends doing right now?
So I wish I could say something that will be, right for 70,000 people. It's not. We have a lot of differences. So fenced communities, it's a little bit more complicated. First of all, a lot of the communities are ruined. So Metula would need about 1.5 years just to, just the infrastructure. I'm not talking about the people and the resilience and the feelings and, just the roads that the tanks have, and rightfully so. We're not blaming anyone, but it doesn't look good. So you have a lot of fenced communities, and then you have so geographically different groups, and also in terms of age, you have the 20 to 35-year-olds. They have a lot of questions. First of all, because half of them are not attached to anything. They don't have mortgage on houses. They don't really have to go back. It's an age that even in a normal year, you would ask yourself, where do I want to see my future? And then most of them who are a little bit older and have small kids are like, is that the reality that I wish for my kids? Because no one has eliminated Hezbollah. It was never a goal. And no one reached 100, only 80% of their abilities. So it is fair to assume that in a year from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, in 2006, we thought, we're good. We had 17 years of quiet. This area was flourishing. And they took us back 50 years.
That's really heartbreaking. And so what you're saying is that maybe some people will return, maybe some people won't return. But do you see in Metula people returning, or are they waiting?
So Metula, again, is waiting because objectively we can't go back.
Because you're on the front line. You really are front line.
Yeah. Nachon. So I don't know if we are, a case study to that, an example to that. But I think it's safe to say, Fleur, something else. We have to remember that on October 6, 2023, this area was one of the weakest areas in Israel socioeconomically. So a lot of the people, the majority of them, like more than close to 80 something percent, can't afford not coming back. So it's not a question of how do you feel about it.
It's not a choice.
It's not
so
really
they have
a choice.
mortgages. So explain to us why. They have mortgages, right? Which they're still paying. Are they still paying for those mortgages?
Or their houses. Take my house, for example. My house market value a day before this whole thing was 5 million shekels. Not so bad, by the way. You should buy a house in Metula. Now we've lost about 70% of our market value. As for all communities around the border, right? Would you buy a house now in Shlomi, in Nahariya? So even if you don't have mortgage and you own a house, what would you do with the house? You can't sell it and buy somewhere else.
Of course not. And so you're stuck. Liat, there's been a lot of money in the budget that hasn't gone through yet, like really billions of shekels, that has been set aside for the rebuilding of the north and the rebuilding of the south. The question is that going to help? Could we get to a point where we're doing it better? We're rebuilding the north for better? Or are you just now beyond cynical in terms of like, well, they haven't talked to us, so how could they rebuild when they're not in touch with us?
First of all, that, but I'm super optimistic. I'm super optimistic. I'll tell you why. Because I'm ahead of one of the strongest civilian forums in the north that has like thousands of members. All are people who have decided that we are going to build up better and that the change will come ground up, because that's it. It's time. There's no other options. Also, non-government officials are like in a rush to make things look better for us. So it will be better because people are taking responsibility for their own communities in a way that we haven't seen in this area, I think, in years, if at all.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And in terms of, and also you will be also optimistic if one day you'll come to my house and you will see a group of about 20 young people that were born and raised in the north of Israel, decided already that it's not only their responsibility to stay here, but it's their obligation to the country, and it's the new narrative. It's Zionism 2.0.
Amazing.
Right?
The new pioneers.
Mamash kacha, and you need to be here. There have to be a fly on the wall and hear how they talk about their home, their connections, their roots, their national mission that they now have, and so on. So that is also happening. Referring to the budget, yeah, well, you know that we have presented plans to the government, and we said that in order to, bring up better, we need about 31 billion shekels. The government approved 15 billion, like less than a half.
15 billion for the north, or for the north and the south?
For the north.
For the north.
But when we sent the plans, it was for the borderline communities and then up to 9 kilometers in. So they approved 15 for 0 to 30 kilometers in.
Which means that they've reduced you to much less. It's not even half.
Oh my God. Also, they have actually said that Metula is equal to Carmiel.
Explain to people why it isn't, and the difference.
Oh, very easily. I will use numbers. Okay. So if we said that Metula has 650 houses, in Carmiel you have about 15,000 houses, right? So if it was equal, you do the math. We have 400 houses damaged, 100 totally need to be rebuilt. We're talking about, I think, 7,000 houses in Carmiel. If that would have been the math, then yes, it's the same needs. And don't take me wrong. We do not want any more needing communities in Israel. We do not. And we're happy that it ended only with this damage, and that we were the front line and the pioneer, and we stood and we suffered and we took most of the fire. But now we need to have resources to rebuild ourselves. And we can be equal to Carmiel.
So,
it doesn't
Liat, what you're saying is that of all of the communities in the north and the border, Metula there's the most devastated community of all of them. You have basically suffered the brunt of of the war in the last year.
True. And as Metula, there's out of 21 fenced communities, 7 are also severely damaged. Metula is like leading. I'm sorry that we have to lead that list. We are leading also in other lists. We have amazing people and resilience, and it's one of the beautiful towns in Israel.
It really is. And I met your mayor, who was like incredible, going in there with a gun, a lone soldier over there, trying to see what he could save and protect. It's really an amazing.
Totally. And then we have Kiryat Shmona, who also was the most bombed cities. And when you're looking at, 12 months, yeah, there is a difference.
So what is your civilian organization? I know that you guys are very active. You've been amazing. What are you doing now? Are you becoming a serious lobby for the rebuilding of the North? What are the practical steps that you're all taking to ensure that you get what you deserve and that the North does build up better?
So we do whatever we can. We are doing building narratives and telling the new story of the north of Israel at one hand. We are bringing the committees in the Knesset who are dealing with the north to have their committee meetings in the north, and that's happening in a few days. We are writing proposals with actual programs and plans, and we are offering ourselves and the people that we represent to also, make it real, make it live. It's also important that I think one of the voices that we are continuing echoing from day one is that we are going to be here when the support will end, and it will end. As it does in the world, because there are going to be new challenges. Maybe, I don't know, aliens will land. I think that's our next chapter.
I think it's more likely the Islamic Republic of Iran, but you never know.
And Mahon or asteroid, there's like a crisis. We are not short on crisis, but what we do know from history is that the momentum is now. If we're not going to change and move things now, it's probably not going to happen in the next century. And the people who are leading this needs to be the people who are living here and are here to see the results.
You're so right. I always said, I come from local government, that it's always the biggest asset that this country has is its civil society. And what's depressing is that sometimes the government, instead of embracing civil society and making civil society their partners, sometimes they want to work in competition with civil society. And so from here, Liat, what you are doing and everybody who's leading the charge forward is doing, we are eternally grateful. We are behind you. And anything that the rest of the country or the rest of the Jewish world can do to help you lead the North into a brighter and better future, please count on us, and the best of luck.
Thank you so much. And I will end by saying we all need to remember that Israel is the safe room for 9 million people and the only safe room for the Jewish people. And we are holding the door in the North, and we're going to continue doing so.
Inspiring words, and you're 100% correct. Thank you so much, Liat Cohen-Raviv.
Thank you.